The silk handkerchief choked on my own blood, warm and metallic against my tongue. As my twin sister, Clara, pressed the velvet cushion over my suffocating face in the VIP suite of St. Jude Hospital, her diamond wedding band scraped my cheek. She whispered, "Rest now, Clara," stealing even my name as I died. The scent of stale Chanel No. 5 and hospital disinfectant still clung to the back of my throat, long after my heart had supposedly stopped beating on that surgical table on October 14th, 2025. When I gasp for air, my lungs don't burn with the agony of a crushed trachea. Instead, they fill with the sharp, crisp autumn breeze of September 12th, 22. My fingers dig into the polished mahogany desk of my private study at the Sterling and Miller architectural firm on Madison Avenue. My laptop screen glows with the blue light of an unsubmitted zoning proposal for the Hudson Yards expansion project, a multi-million-dollar commission that my fiancé, David, and my identical twin, Clara, would eventually steal, weaponize, and use to sign my professional and literal death warrant. "Clara, are you listening to me?" David's voice cuts through the ringing in my ears. He is standing across the desk, wearing his bespoke Brioni suit, his tie dimpled with casual perfection. In my past life, I would have melted at the crinkle of his hazel eyes. Now, looking at him, I see only the exact angle of the jaw that would later press down on a suffocating pillow, and the cold calculation of a man who loved my resume and my trust fund far more than my flesh. "I'm listening, David," I say. My voice is alarmingly steady, stripped of the nervous pitch I used to possess. I look down at my hands. No surgical scars. No wedding band from a union forged in deceit. Just bare skin and a fountain pen gripped so tightly my knuckles turn bone white. "Good," David sighs, running a hand through his sandy hair, adopting that patronizing, tender expression he reserved for when he wanted me to do his heavy lifting. Because Clara is beside herself. She called me twice this morning. Her apartment lease on 84th Street fell through, and she's terrified of being on her own again. I told her she could stay in our guest house for a couple of weeks, just until she gets back on her feet. There it is, the exact inciting incident of my first execution. In my past life, I welcomed Clara in with open arms, weeping tears of sisterly devotion. I let her wear my clothes, let her sit in on client meetings to help her build her portfolio, and watched passively as she slowly blurred the lines of our identical DNA. I gave her my keys, my passwords, and ultimately, my identity. Believing blood was thicker than water, right up until the moment she drained my bank accounts, institutionalized me under her own name, and watched the life drain out of me. "No," I say. The word drops into the quiet office like a lead weight. David pauses, his hand hovering over the lapel of his jacket. A flicker of genuine confusion crosses his features, quickly masked by his trademark corporate charm. "No? What do you mean, no?" "It's just for a few weeks, Clara. She's your sister." "My name is Claire," I correct him softly, lifting my gaze to meet his. David blinks, a microscopic twitch of annoyance betraying his polished facade. "Right. Sorry. Slip of the tongue. You two look so damn identical sometimes it messes with my head." "That's exactly why she cannot stay here," I reply, standing up from the leather executive chair. The leather creaks, a sound I will memorize as the baseline of my resurrection. "If we look so identical, David, it creates a conflict of interest with my firm's compliance protocols. Furthermore, my legal counsel has advised me to keep my household strictly private during the Hudson Yards bidding phase. Clara can check into the Omni Berkshire place. I'll even cover the first month's bill as a gesture of goodwill. David's jaw tightens. The easygoing fiancé routine is slipping, revealing the ambitious, desperate climber underneath. A man drowning in gambling debts he hid from me until it was too late. You're offering to pay for a luxury hotel instead of letting your own flesh and blood sleep in your spare room. Since when did you become so cold, Claire? Since I learned the cost of hospitality, I murmur, walking around the desk until I am standing inches from him. I can smell his cologne, Tom Ford Oud Wood, mixed with the faint, sour trace of an early morning scotch. In the past, I would have worried about his drinking. Now I catalogue it as a vulnerability. Tell Clara the offer stands for 3 nights at the Omni, not a day more. He stares at me, his eyes narrowing as he tries to calculate this sudden, alien defiance. He doesn't know that I spent 3 years rotting in a psychiatric ward under heavy sedatives, listening to nurses call me Patient Miller, while Clara slept in my bed, wore my engagement ring, and signed away my life's work. Every second I stand here breathing is a stolen breath, and I intend to make every single person who conspired against me pay compound interest in terror. Fine, David spits out, his polite facade cracking around the edges. He turns sharply on his heel, the heavy oak door slamming behind him with a resonant, satisfying thud. I don't flinch. I walk back to my desk, pick up my phone, and dial a number I haven't used in 3 years, the private direct line of Arthur Vance, senior partner at Vance & Sterling Forensic Accounting. Arthur, I say when the line picks up. It's Claire Miller. I need a comprehensive, unannounced audit of every corporate account shared with David Sinclair, effective immediately. And I want a private investigator to look into my sister Clara's financial movements over the last 6 months. Charge it to my personal retainer. Good afternoon, Miss Miller, Arthur's gravelly voice responds, surprised by the midnight cold authority in my tone. Is everything all right? Everything is about to be very correct, I reply, staring out the window at the Manhattan skyline as the afternoon sun begins to set in a wash of bruised purple and gold. Send the preliminary reports to my encrypted drive by tomorrow morning. Don't let David or anyone else know this inquiry exists. Consider it done. I hang up. The game hasn't just begun. I have rewritten the rules before the first pawn has even left the board. By Thursday morning, the physical toll of my rebirth is offset entirely by the adrenaline of methodical destruction. I sit at the marble island of my Tribeca loft, turning a cold silver teaspoon over and over in my fingers. The morning light streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing over a cup of Earl Grey tea. The air smells faintly of bergamot and dry paper. My laptop chimes. A secure encrypted PDF from Arthur Vance has landed in my inbox. I open it, and the dry numbers paint a portrait of absolute betrayal that would have broken me in my previous life. But today, my pulse doesn't even quicken. The data shows that 3 months ago, long before David proposed, he and Clara opened a joint offshore account in the Cayman Islands, systematically siphoning retainer fees from my architectural firm into a shell corporation named Apex Holdings. More damningly, David used my personal social security number to take out a high-interest bridge loan of $500,000 to cover his underground poker debts at an illegal club on the Lower East Side. They weren't just planning to steal my career. They were planning to bankrupt me legally, saddle me with criminal tax fraud, and institutionalize me under a manufactured mental health crisis to strip me of my voting shares in the firm. The front door code clicks. Beep, 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 beep. Clara walks in uninvited, carrying a designer leather duffel bag that I recognize instantly. It's the limited edition Saint Laurent tote I bought myself for closing the Kensington Hotel account last year. She didn't even bother going to the Omni Berkshire place. David must have given her the door code, thinking he could bully me into submission by presenting her presence as a fait accompli. "Claire! Oh, thank God!" Clara cries out, dropping her bag with a heavy thud against the hardwood floor. She rushes toward the kitchen island, her face contorted into a masterpiece of manufactured distress. Her hair is styled in loose waves, smelling faintly of the exact same shampoo I use. "David told me what you said. How could you be so cruel, locking me out? I'm your twin. We share the same blood, the same face." She stops abruptly, as I don't look up. I continue stirring my tea, the metallic scrape of the spoon against porcelain, the only sound in the cavernous loft. "Clara," I say softly. She falters, her practiced tears freezing in her eyes. "What?" I finally lift my head. I don't raise my voice. I don't snarl. I look at her with the detached clinical interest of a pathologist examining a common specimen under a microscope. "You're standing on a Persian silk rug that costs more than your annual freelance styling income," I state evenly. "You used my security code, a felony trespassing violation, given that you do not own or lease this property, and you are carrying a bag that I purchased with my own corporate bonus." Clara's face flushes, a hot, ugly red blooming from her neck up to her cheekbones. Her hands twitch at her sides. "Are you out of your mind? Since when do you talk to me like this? It's just a joke, a temporary favor." David said. "David doesn't own this loft," I interrupt, standing up slowly. I am 2 inches taller than her when I wear my kitten heels, but today, standing flat-footed in loafers, I tower over her psychologically. This property is held entirely in a private trust bearing my name only. You have exactly 60 seconds to pick up your bag, walk out that front door, and never return. If you are still inside this building. When the timer expires, I will call the NYPD precinct on Canal Street and press formal charges for identity theft and breaking and entering. Clara stares at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. The arrogant, untouchable smirk she usually wore when she successfully manipulated our parents vanishes entirely, replaced by cold sweat beading along her hairline. "You're bluffing," she stammers, her voice cracking into a shrill register. "You wouldn't do that to your own sister. Mum and Dad are in Boca Raton playing bridge, completely unaware that you've been forging my signature on real estate documents," I say, stepping closer to her. The air between us turns glacial. I lean in, my voice dropping to a low, razor-sharp whisper that makes her recoil. 50 seconds, Clara." Panic finally shatters her composure. Her breathing turns ragged, her palms sweating as she fumbles to pick up the Saint Laurent tote, nearly dropping it on the floor. Her arrogance is crumbling into dust right before my eyes, exactly the way mine did 3 years ago in that hospital room. Only this time, the roles are reversed, and I am holding the pillow. "You'll regret this, Claire!" she shrieks, tears of genuine rage springing to her eyes as she backs towards the door. "You're a sick, paranoid bitch. David will hear about this. Tell David I said hello, I reply mildly. Click. The front door locks behind her. I walk back to the kitchen island, take a slow sip of my tea, and pick up my phone. I dial David's office number. David Sinclair's office, his executive assistant chirps. Put him through, I command. Tell him it's Claire, and it's an emergency regarding Apex Holdings. The line clicks instantly. David's breathless, panicked voice fills my ear within 3 seconds. Claire, what the hell is going on? Clara just called me crying. David, I interrupt, letting a cold, sweet smile spread across my face. We need to talk about your bridge club debts and your offshore accounts. Pack a bag. You're going to need it. David's breath catches sharply over the receiver. The ambient hum of his open-plan office, the distant clatter of keyboards and low murmur of junior architects, suddenly vanishes into a dead, suffocating silence on his end. What? What are you talking about? David's voice loses its smooth corporate veneer, dropping into a jagged, defensive pitch. Offshore accounts? Claire, have you been drinking? Or are you having another one of your episodes? Don't you dare patronize me with that gaslighting script, I snap back, my voice cutting through the telephone wire like a scalpel. Arthur Vance and his team of forensic accountants have already mapped out every single unauthorized wire transfer from the Hudson Yards retainer account to your Cayman Shell Corporation. $500,000, David. Funneled directly to a private ledger under your mother's maiden name. A sharp intake of breath echoes through the speaker. I can picture him precisely. Standing behind his mahogany desk on the 42nd floor, his knuckles pressing so hard against the glass partition that his fingers are turning blue. His immaculate tie suddenly feeling like a noose. The mahogany conference room on the 45th floor of the Sterling and Miller headquarters smells of expensive leather, ozone, and impending doom. When I push open the heavy double doors at precisely 2:58 p.m., the 5 senior partners of the firm, men who built their reputations on corporate ruthlessness and paternalistic condescension, are already seated around the conference table. David is standing at the far end, hovering near the presentation screen. His face is the color of skim milk, his signature Brioni suit suddenly looking 2 sizes too large for his trembling frame. He must have spent the last hour frantically scrubbing his phone logs, unaware that my forensic team had already cloned his hard drives yesterday afternoon. Claire, senior partner Harrison Sterling says, clearing his throat and adjusting his rimless glasses. He looks genuinely irritated to have his afternoon interrupted by a domestic dispute. David briefed us that you're experiencing some personal distress regarding your upcoming nuptials. The firm cannot become an arbiter of marital spousal disputes. If you need to take a leave of absence, this isn't a marital dispute, Harrison, I interrupt, my voice cutting through the heavy air with the chill of an Arctic wind. I don't wait for an invitation. I walk straight to the head of the table, pulling out the executive chair opposite Harrison. I place a single, thick manila folder directly onto the polished wood. The thud echoes like a gavel strike. This is an institutional audit of corporate embezzlement, systemic fraud, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny, I continue, remaining standing, resting my palms flat against the table. I lock eyes with David, whose throat bobs as he desperately tries to swallow a dry gasp. And David Sinclair is the primary architect. An indignant murmur ripples around the table. Richard Miller, the firm's founding partner and distant cousin to my own lineage, scowls, crossing his arms over his tailored vest. Now see here, Claire. David is our lead senior project manager for the Hudson Yards expansion. Accusing him of financial crimes without firm verified board consensus opens this firm up to massive defamation liability. "Open the folder, Richard," I say softly. Harrison hesitates, eyeing my unblinking, dead-eyed expression. Slowly, deliberately, he reaches out, unties the red cotton string, and flips open the cover. Inside are the itemized bank statements, the notarized wire transfer logs, and the scanned copies of David's offshore shell corporation, Apex Holdings, complete with his signature, his corporate ID number, and the exact timestamps of the illicit fund movements siphoning our firm's capital into his personal gambling debts. The color drains entirely from Harrison's face. The rustle of turning pages sounds like dry autumn leaves scraping across a tombstone. "My God," Richard breathes out, leaning forward, his eyes darting across the numbers. He looks up slowly, fixing David with a stare of pure, unadulterated venom. "David, what is the meaning of this?" It's a forgery," David shrieks, his voice cracking into a desperate, high-pitched whine that shatters his polished facade entirely. He lunges forward, slamming his palms onto the table. Sweat is pouring in thick, glistening beads down his temples, matting his sandy hair against his forehead. "She's lying. Claire is unstable. She hacked my computer. She fabricated these documents out of spite because I called off our engagement." "You called off our engagement?" I cut him off, tilting my head with a cold, mocking smile. "That's fascinating, David, considering I have your text messages from 20 minutes ago begging me to take you back, accompanied by threats against my family." I tap my phone screen twice, casting a secure projection directly onto the massive overhead smartboard behind him. Bright, glowing text floods the conference room walls in giant, inescapable letters. From David Sinclair. "Please, Claire, drop the audit. If the board sees this, I'm ruined. I'll give you back the engagement ring. I'll sign a non-disclosure. Just don't ruin me." The room goes dead silent. You could hear a pin drop on the thick wool carpeting. David spins around, staring up at the giant glowing letters of his own cowardice. His knees buckle slightly. He catches himself against the edge of the chair, his chest heaving as he gasps for air like a man drowning in open water. The arrogant, untouchable climber who used to look down on me from his corporate pedestal is gone, replaced by a sweating, pathetic animal caught in a trap of his own making. "Security," Harrison Sterling says coldly, not even bothering to look at David as he reaches for the intercom button on his desk. "Escort Mr. Sinclair off the premises. Confiscate his keycard, his corporate laptop, and his office phone. Call the precinct on Canal Street. Inform them that Sterling and Miller is filing formal charges for corporate embezzlement." No, wait. Harrison, you can't do this. Claire, please." David screams, lunging toward the end of the table as two burly security guards in dark suits burst through the double doors, grabbing him firmly by the biceps. He struggles, his expensive Brioni jacket tearing at the seam, his polished Italian leather shoes sliding helplessly across the hardwood floor as they drag him backward. His face is purple with terror, his eyes wet and bloodshot as he locks onto my gaze one final time. I don't blink. I don't smile. I simply watch him with the detached satisfaction of an executioner dropping a blade. "Rest now, David," I whisper softly, echoing the exact words my sister whispered as she pressed the velvet cushion over my face in my past life. The heavy doors slam shut, cutting off his frantic shrieks. The conference room remains silent for a long, heavy moment. Harrison clears his throat nervously, adjusting his glasses once more before looking up at me with newfound, terrified respect. "Well, Claire," Harrison says, his voice subdued, "it appears your assessment of the situation was entirely accurate. What are your instructions for the Hudson Yards portfolio?" "I am taking over as sole managing director of the project," I state, pulling out my chair and sitting down with absolute, unshakable authority. "Effective immediately. And as for my sister Clara, who assisted in routing these funds through her personal freelance accounts," I pause, letting a thin, razor-sharp smile touch my lips. "Let her know that her welcome wagon in Manhattan is officially closed." The board members nod in absolute unison. Not a single man at this table dares to challenge me. That evening, the rain begins to lash against the floor-to-ceiling windows of my Tribeca loft. The city outside is a blur of neon streaks and shimmering asphalt, smelling of wet concrete and exhaust fumes. I pour myself a glass of neat bourbon, the amber liquid burning my throat with a comforting, grounding heat. My phone buzzes violently on the kitchen island. It's an incoming video call from an unrecognized encrypted number. In about 1092 words, hard limit, 1310 words, end at a natural beat. Continue the story seamlessly from where it stopped. Start with the label, Part 4, on its own line. Do not rewrite previous parts. Do not write the conclusion, Part 4. The rain drumming against the Tribeca windows sounds like marching feet, a relentless, rhythmic reminder that time can be conquered, rewritten, and weaponized. It is November 3rd, 2025. Exactly 3 weeks since I walked out of that hospital room in my past life with my lungs burning and my identity stripped away. Today, the board of Sterling and Miller Architectural Firm is convening for a vote that will permanently erase David Sinclair's name from every architectural blueprint in the tri-state area. When I step out of the private elevator on the 45th floor, the corridor is deserted, except for one unexpected figure pacing nervously near the executive double doors. It is Eleanor Sinclair, David's mother. In my past life, Eleanor played the part of the refined, charitable matriarch, pouring afternoon tea while subtly poisoning my self-esteem, convincing me that I was too emotionally fragile to manage my own trust funds. Behind that grandmotherly facade, however, she was the primary beneficiary of the offshore shell corporation, using my hard-earned capital to fund her Manhattan Society galas and her lavish estate in the Hamptons. As she hears my heel click against the marble floor, she spins around. Her face is pale, her eyes rimmed with red from sleepless nights, her designer wool coat clutched tightly around her throat like armor. "Claire, thank God," Eleanor breathes out, rushing forward with her hands outstretched, attempting to capture my wrists in that familiar, suffocating grip of fake maternal warmth. "We need to talk. This madness has gone far enough. David is sitting in a holding cell downtown, and your sister Clara is facing federal conspiracy charges. Do you have any idea what this is doing to our family's reputation?" I don't flinch. I don't pull my hands away, because I don't give her the satisfaction of touching me at all. I smoothly step to the left, sliding my hands into the deep pockets of my charcoal wool trousers. Eleanor's hands clutch at empty air. Her arms drop to her sides, a microscopic twitch of genuine panic crossing her powdered cheeks. "Your family, Eleanor?" I ask, my voice level and icy. As I recall, my family consists of my parents in Florida, who spent 30 years believing you and your son were honorable business associates, while you quietly looted our joint enterprise. We are talking about a youthful indiscretion, Eleanor snaps, her aristocratic composure finally cracking under the weight of utter desperation. Her voice rises into a sharp, shrill register that echoes down the empty corridor. David made a mistake with some poker debts. Yes, but you are destroying his entire future over bruised pride. If you drop this audit and sign the non-disclosure agreements, I can ensure that Clara gets a plea deal, and we can all pretend this nightmare never happened. I tilt my head, studying her with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing an invasive parasite. You still don't understand, do you, Eleanor? I murmur, taking a slow step closer until I tower over her by sheer force of will. You think this is about a broken engagement. You think David simply made a mistake at a poker table. I reach into my briefcase, pull out a single, heavily stamped legal document, and hold it out for her to read. Read it, Eleanor. Her trembling fingers snatch the paper. Her eyes scan the top header, and the last vestige of color drains entirely from her face, leaving her looking like a corpse wrapped in expensive cashmere. Forensic property, lien and asset seizure, estate of Eleanor Sinclair, the Hamptons. No, she whispers, her breath catching in her throat. This house was left to me by my late husband. You can't touch it. It's protected under family trust exemptions. It was protected, I correct her smoothly, my voice dropping to a low, razor-sharp register. Until Arthur Vance traced the down payment for your Hamptons estate back to a fraudulent wire transfer executed in 2021, using my personal corporate bonus as collateral while I was recovering from minor surgery. You didn't inherit that, Eleanor. You bought it with embezzled funds, stolen directly from my signature. Eleanor staggers backward, her hip colliding sharply with the mahogany wainscoting. She gasps, clutching her chest as if she's having a cardiac event. Her breathing turns shallow, her manicured fingers clawing desperately at the lapel of her coat. You're a vicious, cold-hearted witch, she gasps out, her voice cracking into a ragged sob of pure, helpless rage. David loved you. He would have given you everything. He tried to, I reply softly. He gave me a closed coffin and a stolen name. I am simply returning the favor. Without another word, I turn my back on her, push open the heavy double doors of the boardroom, and walk into the blinding sunlight streaming through the 45th floor windows. The final twist arrives not with a grand courtroom trial, but with an unexpected package delivered to my Tribeca loft on a quiet Sunday morning. It is November 15th, 2025. Exactly 1 month since my rebirth. The sun is shining brightly over the Hudson River, painting the sky in brilliant shades of amber and rose. The scent of fresh coffee fills my kitchen. I am sitting at the Marble Island, reviewing the final architectural blueprints for the Hudson Yards expansion, a project now bearing my name alone as sole managing director and majority stakeholder. My doorbell rings. Ding dong. I walk to the door, check the digital monitor, and see a courier in a brown uniform standing alone in the hallway, holding a flat manila package. There is no return address, only a handwritten label addressed directly to Claire Miller. I unlock the deadbolt, turn the handle, and take the package from the courier, signing his electronic tablet with a steady hand. "Have a good morning, ma'am," he says, turning toward the elevator. "You too," I reply. I lock the door behind him, walk back to the kitchen island, and use a small utility knife to slice open the reinforced cardboard seal. Inside is a single, thick sheet of heavy parchment paper bearing the official seal of the New York State Department of Corrections, alongside a handwritten letter penned on cheap legal notepad paper. I pull the letter out and begin to read. Claire. If you are reading this, it means the appellate court officially denied David's bail motion this morning. I built my life out of the ashes they tried to bury me in, and I never looked back. If this story of ultimate justice made your heart race and your spirit soar, hit that like button to show your support. Share this with someone who needs to hear that a second chance is worth fighting for. And subscribe right now so you never miss my next rebirth journey.